Let's talk a bit about what we classify as phonological processes. Phonological processes are changes that the language will go through to get the authentic sound. And most persons do it and don't recognize that they are doing it. And that's one of the reasons why we want to talk about, for ease of articulation, we have phonological processes being applied. So one of the phonological processes that Jamaican Creole is known for, not just Jamaican Creole, but many basilectal. Yeah, remember what basilectal is? The furthest variety from the standard of. So in this particular case, the furthest variety from English. You may have cluster of consonants being reduced. And the process is called cluster reduction, consonant cluster reduction. Now, why do we have cluster reductions? The explanation is from different angles. One is for ease of articulation, but it's also because of the source language. So African languages also like to have clusters being reduced. And as a result, in Jamaican Creole, you also have cluster reduction. Now, here's where we start talking about the syllable structure. When you were taught to count syllables in school, you were told to tap. And the number of taps will tell you the number of syllables that are in a word. So for example, fa, da. How many syllables? Good, 2. Ma, da. 2 syllables. Now, when you take a syllable, we can break it down in terms of the consonants in the syllable and the vowels. Now, don't think that all the time we classify it as the nucleus of the syllable. It's often the loudest. So the nucleus is often occupied by a vowel, but it doesn't always. There isn't always a vowel in the nucleus. So let's talk about the syllable structure for a minute. The consonant at the beginning, we classify it as the onset. And then, so if we can have multiple onsets because we have multiple consonants at the beginning of the syllable. So for example, let's use the word father. Break it down into syllables. Father. How many consonants do we have at the beginning? Just one. The f. Exactly. So f is our onset, and the a is our nucleus, which is occupied by our vowel. Now, we say that when we break down our syllable structure, we have the onset and the rhyme. The rhyme comprises the vowel or the nucleus and the coda. And sometimes some words, some syllables will not have a coda. And it's not that it wasn't there originally, but it's because of consonant cluster reduction, we delete. When you hear conscience say turn up, that tan is actually stand. So S-T-A-N-D. How many syllables are in stand? Exactly, 1. Stand. So when you break the word stand down into its syllable structure, we say this. Remember, we said that the syllable comprises the onset and the rhyme. And when we break the rhyme down further, the rhyme comprises, good job, the nucleus and the coda. So we look at the word stand. We have a CC onset, because that's ST, so that's the onset. And the rhyme is A, which is your nucleus, and a ND coda. So if you are supposed to spell out the syllable structure, identify the syllable structure of the word stand, it's C, C, V, C, C. All right? But you realize how many C's are there. And that's what we classify as heavy. When we have multiple C's, we say that if it's in the onset or the coda, we say it's a heavy onset or a heavy coda. Now, that's too much. So we reduce that. So we delete some of the sounds. Now, please don't think in order to reduce the heaviness that we always delete. We can insert sounds as well, and I'll show you something. I'll show you an example in a bit. So, cluster reduction. We Creoles love to reduce clusters. If the word can be understood with fewer consonants, and oftentimes when we are reducing, that's why we classify it as consonant cluster reduction, because what we often delete, if we are deleting, it's a consonant that we delete. So Creoles favor a CV syllable structure. We love CV syllable structure, which means that we just have a C in the onset and a V in the rhyme, which just is in your nucleus. When you have that, that is because we favor that CV syllable structure. A lot of times we have that cluster reduction. So you find it in many words. So that's STAND. We delete the S and we delete the D. What are you left with? Exactly, tan. So you will hear your granny say, "Turn over there and shout out my name," or "Turn over there and bawl out my name." And you'll hear these. The music has a lot of these. So when we are doing music analysis, these are things that we are going to be identifying. We don't delete only to reduce clusters. We can insert. So we have what we classify as a S nasal cluster. That means that you have a S plus a nasal sound, creating a cluster. So in the words like snake, words like Smith, words like snore. These words at the beginning have a S nasal cluster. I remember we said we don't like heavy onsets or we don't like heavy coda. Now notice, in order to break this cluster down, we insert rather than delete. So snake in Jamaican Creole is snake. Snake. Remember that A is A. So we break down that S and nasal cluster by inserting a vowel. Most times, depends on the word, you will know what to insert. So you move from Smith to Simit. You move from snake to snake. You move from snore, and this is where you have a variation to nor or nor, and this is how you get the variation. So daddy snore a lot, or daddy snore a lot. We have what we classify as the technical terminology is palatalization, and all that is you pronounce a word when you have a k, when you have a k sound and a coming after it, in the nucleus, we insert a y, we insert a y sound. So you move from campus to exactly campus. You move from garbage to what? No, not rubbish. We're sticking to the word. So you move from garbage to garbage. You move from card that you play to Exactly, you're following through. So card. All right. Now, it is not every word, it's not every k, a, or g as you are. So try it, and if it sounds like it works, if it doesn't work, you are going to be corrected. Don't worry. So we have some of these. Uh, another nuanced pronunciation is that some languages, some Creoles, they don't pronounce their R's. And when you don't, and it depends on the environment, you don't pronounce your R's, you say that the language is non-rhotic. So an example of a non-rhotic language is Trinidadian Creole. Because if you pronounce the word FARM, you get what? Exactly, farm. And so you delete your R's. And again, it depends on the environment. Remember, we spoke about teacher earlier? Once you have a word ending in ER, and it's not every ER word, it's typically ER words where you add an ER to identify the person who does the action. So a teacher is someone who teaches. So that ER, we often replace that ER sound, that ER pronunciation with a A. So that's why you are going to get words like better, you're going to get words like pastor, you get preacher, you get teacher, and the list goes on. That ER is A. What else do we have? Um, Sometimes we, when we delete a sound to lessen the number of consonants we have, sometimes deletion has we compensate by having some other pronunciation or some other inserted pronunciation, inserted sound. So that poor and boa sound. So we do in Jamaica, we do boil water. We boil water. And the food doesn't spoil. We say the food spoil. And what we have is a w sound. So that's why you get words like boy. You often wonder why you have boy being pronounced like that. Again, it's because of the variation in the, the first sound. So you're going to get poil, you're going to get boil. Um, Again, we have variations in so notice not every time you are going to get that poor pronunciation, because when you're playing football with your brethren and you flick the ball over the man's head, that is called a what in your language. In Jamaican Creole, we say we him get a pile. Now, pile doesn't give you poil. So you don't say you poil the man, you say you pile him. And sometimes we get that variation in how we pronounce depending on the word. So sometimes the rules are not applied in absolute. Sometimes that it depends on the word. And this is where you are going to get the nuance as we move along. All right? We spoke about in British English, for example, it's little. In your Creole or in your language, how do you pronounce it? That word is little. Now, when you have a T and an L in a word coming together, and we say that when a T and an L appears in the same syllable, that T is replaced by a K. And the reason for that, the linguistics of it is a process called assimilation, right? Why? Because l is pronounced further back in your mouth as opposed to b. So b is to the front of your mouth, l is towards the back. Now, t is pronounced at the front of your mouth. T. We say that t is a alveolar sound because right underneath your front set of front teeth is what we classify as the alveolar ridge. So that t to move from the front and then go to the back to pronounce l. Yo, that's too much work. Stop killing out yourself. So what we do is we say that the t assimilates the backness of the L. And what we do is just replace it with a sound that is already back, which is exactly k. So when you hear Jamaican say little more or give me little of that, it's pronounced, so spell it, little. Let me say your spelling work. Right, L. What's your vowel? Good, that's E, so that's an I. And what's the last part? No, it's not K-E-L. It's K-L. So little. Because if you put the E in, you're going to get likel. And that's not the pronunciation. Now, remember I spoke to you, remember when we were talking about, so let's do a recap. When you look at the syllable structure, in the word little, how many consonants are there? Clap it out. Li, kl. Exactly, that's 2. Now, remember I said to you that the nucleus, which is where you'll often find it's the loudest and it's the most pronounced aspect of the syllable, element of the syllable. We said that the nucleus is often occupied by a vowel, but it doesn't always have to. We can have a consonant occupying the nucleus. So if there are 2 syllables, you need to have 2 syllable structure. So li is li, which is CV, what appears in your nucleus of the second syllable. Exactly, KL. And that L occupies the nucleus. So K is K and L. So that when you pronounce little, it's L-I-K-L. Now, let's go back to our voice and voiceless. When you pronounce K, no vibration. So if when you're replacing sounds, we often have to keep that voicelessness. So T was voiceless. So when you replace it with a sound, with a back sound, then that sound has to be voiceless as well. No. Needle. Yeah, Needle. That's how you spell it? Yes. When you spell it in Jamaican Creole, you have to spell it as it's spelled. You have to spell it as how it's sound. And the word is not needle in Jamaican Creole. Remember, the same backness applies. So when you put rest your finger on your throat, you get the. There's a voicing, there's vibration. That means when you pronounce, if you're going to replace the with a more back, because the is also to the front. That means that we need a back sound. And the voiced back sound is good. So that's why when you hear Spice talk about the needle eye, pum pum, the needle eye, pum, she never said needle, she said needle. Because it's Niigl. And so when you have a L with a D and an N and an L with a T, you're going to get this type of variation in pronunciation. So needle, not needle, little, not little. We, again, like to shorten our words. Why? For ease of articulation. It's not because we're lazy. It's because we want to take the shortest route in speech. And in speech, we speak fluidly. Words flow. That's why you get for and it producing. All right, you were listening. Feet. What we also like to do is the word something. And yes, we can say something. But sometimes we just shorten it and say something. You hear Cartel say, something going to happen. Yes. And it's a matter of what we classify these as syllabic nasals. And the easiest thing to recognize them as is when you say that a sound is syllabic, when we say that a consonant is syllabic, it's because it replaces the vowel in the nucleus. Remember your syllable structure, onset and the rhyme is broken down into nucleus and coda. That nucleus is typically occupied by vowels, but they can be occupied by consonants. So when the word little, we found the L occupying the nucleus. We can also have nasals occupying, so that's the nucleus. So that's why you get, so if you spell the word something and you tap it out, so it's two syllables. So based on how you spell it, it's SO. Some is something, right? So what you find is that when we say that we talk about syllabic nasals, is because we have nasal sounds occupying the nucleus of a word. So something, you often hear people talk about meeting. You hear granny say, "Me I go prayer meeting." Exactly. It spell it. Tap it out and spell it. Me. So it's M-I-I because it is long, and T-N. And what occupies the nucleus? A nasal, the N. When you have a guest speaker, so teachers, when you're at school and you have a guest speaker coming to talk to your students, and you want to give them a what of appreciation, a token of appreciation. Nah, in Jamaican Creole, it's a token of appreciation. And again, so TOOKN. Right? We spoke about cluster reduction. We like to keep our concept, like to keep as few consonants as possible in our word. Everybody know the Charlie Black song. The song is Ice and Wine. We love to see when she are ice and wine, ice and wine. And you might wonder, but what kind of bumper and wine? But because of several processes in that word, we have the dropping of the H, and we remove that OI. So and when we have OI in Jamaican, that OI is now AI. So that's why we use cooking oil. But not use cooking oil. If you go in our house and you hear them say pass the olive oil, uptown, because downtown we use cooking oil, and so that OI sound changes to AI. So you delete your H, the OI in natural Jamaican Creole is OI. Sorry, is the OI is AI. And then what do we have? Exactly. Cluster reduction. We delete that T because we don't need it. So now you get hoist being reduced to ice. Yes. So we have several processes. We are going to have multiple processes in our word, and the different processes that a word will go through will make the word unrecognizable when it's produced. And we already saw that in tan. So stand being reduced to tan. You get hoist being reduced to ice. Now remember, we talk about moving across word boundaries. So everything running together. When the persons know the conscience song, sit down. Yes, that same song, sit down. Actually, sit down is sit down. So what you have is follow the process, deletion of the t, especially because it's now going to be run into down, and that OWN, that's on. So in Trinidadian Creole and even Tobagonian Creole, TOWN is pronounced as exactly tongue. And that then creates what? An homophone with exactly what you use and talk. So there are variations and this is how what we want to do is to use the music to zero in on the difference in pronunciation. And we are going to do that in our particular, we are going to use a video, a music, we are going to use a song where we do that at a later date, and just to capture the essence of the pronunciation, right? Now, to wrap up our session, let's do a quick recap. K, that hard K sound, and it is followed by a A. So you just insert a Y. So yes, so we're doing a quick recap. Jamaican Creole phonology we are going to have sounds similar, that sounds that are found in English, but you are going to have those that are unique. And those unique sounds often arise as a result of phonological processes existing. So phonological processes, you get diphthongs, good, which are two sounds, two vowels put together to give you one sound. So in words like ice, no, I'm talking the actual ice now. That ICE, it's AIS, because you get that A, two vowel sounds, and that gives you complex vowels. You also have complex consonants, where you have two consonants together in words like church, in nyam, kya, in can, or can't move into can. And exactly, you recognize that nasalization, because when you delete the T at the end, there's compensation, and oftentimes is that nasalization that you get. So we have simple vowels, we have complex vowels, and we have long vowels. We have simple consonants, and we have complex consonants. We have different phonological processes that the language will go through, and these processes will lead to the words that are English words being unrecognizable. And you will say, I don't know what they're saying. Yeah, you know. It's just that you don't recognize the words. So we have a process called metathesis. And it's basically where we interchange sounds. It's not unique to Creole because you'll hear persons say, oh, them a film a show or them a film a movie from film. So FILM becomes FLIM. We do it with other words. You can, in English, you ask a question, but in Creole, there you go, you ask a question. So ASK becomes AKS. Happens in desk. In English, DESK, but in Creole, it's DEX, DEKS. We have it in other words like crispy. In Creole becomes exactly cripsy. So cripsy banana chips. When you eat it and you hear the crunch, it cripsy. We have it in words like boost. When you hear Jamaicans tell you, don't make nobody boots you. BOOST now becoming BOOTS. And because of that interchanging of particular sounds, that's what we classify as metathesis. And these are things that we are going to capture in the music and use music as evidence. Syllable structure. Creoles like light clusters. Sorry, light syllables. So where we have no heavy clusters. And what we classify as well, we have no heaviness. And heaviness is where you have multiple consonants. If we can delete it and the word remain the same and be recognizable, we are going to delete it. So you have the examples we used earlier, tan, from stand. And as we go through the music, we are going to identify examples. So I want you to remember these. So you're supposed to be making your notes. And once you have your notes, when we are going through the music, I want you to refer to your notes. Go back to your notes so that you can recognize what I was talking about. Because I'm not going to leave you out on a limb. We are doing this in a sequence. All right? So I'm going to classify these as native notes, things that you need to focus on if you want to sound like a true Jamaican. Feel free to drop your H's at the beginning of the word. Yeah, I know you're gonna have a headache after you're done, but it's all in the process of recognizing the language for what it is, a language on its own, and stop referring to it as broken English. Because one of the reasons we classify, what people will classify Jamaican Creole or Creoles as broken forms of their super straight, it's because the different phonological processes and the words become unrecognizable. So we say that it's broken. No, it's because it's in their own, they have their own systems. Remember that ER sound at the end, you pronounce it as a hard A, so A. So that's why when you talk about Vibes Cartel say about the teacher, that ER becomes A. That long O, that O sound, you replace it with O, which is A, exactly, a complex vowel. OI, pronounced as I. So ice, I'll. That A, long A, as in the word pay, is pronounced A. Right? So your TH sounds, it depends on if it's voiced or voiceless. If it's voiceless, TH as in the word think, you replace it with a T. And if it's voiced, as in the word they, you can say, well, they may not be the best example because we said them. And we are going to see how this works when we start talking about the grammar of Jamaican Creole. So you replace your TH with either T or D, depending on if it's voiced or voiceless. Remember, your TL is going to be pronounced as KL, and your DL will be pronounced as GL. Whenever you have that K followed by that hard A, and it's not absolute, because CORD is pronounced card, not card. Card is something totally different. All right. We also have your insertion to break up clusters if you're not deleting. So snake becomes snake, simit. And these are not all, remember we said these are not in all varieties of Jamaican Creole, not in all dialects of Jamaican Creole. They exist in different varieties. Not everybody drop their H. Not everybody reduce their clusters. Not everybody insert. Not everybody delete. It depends on your variety. And that's why I said the examples that we gave here today are representative of which variety of Jamaican Creole, the basilictal variety. So stay connected, because we have a lot more content to come. And remember, I don't want you to be left out. We are on all platforms. We are on Twitter, we are on YouTube, we are on Instagram, we are on TikTok. Subscribe to all of them, King Clava. And let's have some more fun. That's what we want to do with the music. We want to break the music down and zero in on the language, because the language makes everything a lot clearer. Why? Language awareness. It's conscious knowledge of what is going on in the language. And once you have conscious language, once you are linguistically aware, everything becomes clearer. Yep. So until next time.